Hello and welcome to bonus episode number 151 of the Culips English podcast. How's it going? My name's Andrew. I'll be your host and your English study buddy for today. And in this week's story, I'm going to tell you about a burglar who has been terrorizing my home all week. Along the way, as you listen to this story, you'll be able to build your vocabulary and learn some great expressions, as well as just grow your overall English fluency and communication skills. So without any further ado, let's jump in and get started. Here we go. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I celebrated the 2-year anniversary of us moving into our home. I couldn't believe it. It seems like those 2 years flew by in the blink of an eye. And if something flies by in the blink of an eye, it means that it happens really fast. Like you blink your eyes and it happens, it's finished. So it feels like those 2 years just flew by in the blink of an eye. And we've been in this home for 2 years. Longtime Culips listeners will know that my wife and I bought an old home here in Seoul, South Korea, where we live, and then we took a couple of years to renovate it, and then we moved in. And for the first year and a half of living in this home, we really focused on the interior, and our exterior, our little front yard that we have, was nothing special at all. Really quite unsightly, to be honest. It's just sort of like a cement walled in area. So the interior was our focus and we didn't worry about the exterior at all. However, once we got the interior finished and to our liking, then it was time to focus on the exterior. And that's what we've been doing over the last several months, is decorating our yard. Maybe decorating isn't the best word to use, although we did do some decorations. We installed some lighting and we bought some outdoor furniture, some chairs and a table so we can have like a little barbecue party outside. It's quite lovely and it has a nice atmosphere at night when we turn the lights on and we grill some food out there. It's awesome. But we also did some landscaping, and my wife has enjoyed gardening for a long time. Pretty much the whole time I've known her, she's been a gardener, but she's always focused on houseplants and plants that grow inside. And she's especially fond of cacti and cactus and these kinds of tropical houseplants as well. So plants that don't really grow outside very well here in Korea, but we needed to do something with our yard. It was, like I said, this kind of ugly concrete space. Like the floor is just a concrete slab, and then there are these walls that act as like a fence, but they're all made out of brick and painted white. So yeah, just not like the most pleasant space outside. It felt very bleak. So yeah, we decorated with the furniture and the lights, and then we've been landscaping and gardening over the spring and now into the summer as well. And I believe I've mentioned a few times on Culips about my wife buying some trees and us visiting a local nursery and buying some trees. And a nursery is what we call a garden center, a place that grows and sells plants. So we visited the local nursery here, and I guess my wife went a little bit crazy with the trees. She bought, on last count, I believe, 13 different trees, which is especially crazy considering the small size of our yard. Here in Seoul, there are tons of people living in this city. It's a mega city and space is at a premium. And so in our little yard, our little corner of the world, we tried to fit in as many trees as possible. And I think my wife did a good job at doing this. Of course, not all of these trees are like full-blown grown-up trees. We bought them as small little trees, and some are just really, really tiny, and hopefully in the future, after several years, will develop into a bigger tree. But as of right now, they're only, 30 to 50 centimeters tall, pretty small. But we did splurge and buy some bigger, more mature trees that were already 6, 7, 8 years old, probably. And when we bought them, it was still, I guess, the winter, just coming out of the winter into the spring. And so the trees looked like those old-fashioned brooms. I don't know if you've ever seen those old-fashioned brooms that are just made out of twigs and sticks. And that's what these trees look like when we brought them to our yard, like We were like, are these trees even alive? They just look like a bunch of dead branches because it was still the winter. So there were no blooms or leaves or anything. They were just totally like sticks pretty much. But anyways, we planted them, and as the winter turned into spring, turned into summer, now it's been amazing to watch their progression. They've really bloomed and are like these huge big trees now and are growing so fast. I guess our location is just perfect because it gets a mix of sun and shade and yeah, I don't know, whatever else the trees need to grow, but they're growing really well. And I'm so happy about this because one thing that I really wanted in our home is to try and make it feel like an escape from the city, which is hard to do because we're like right in the middle of the city and there's urban area all around us. And one thing that's I love my home and I really enjoy living here. But one thing that is kind of unfortunate about the home is just that it's placed in the middle of like this huge urban area, right? And so you can never really feel like you've escaped the city. And until recently, whenever I would look out the big window in the living room, then I would just look out at this huge apartment complex that is across the road from us. And if you've never seen a Korean apartment complex before, they serve a function. They're like very high in utility. And what I mean they're high in utility is that they provide a lot of benefit and a lot of good for many, many people. So they're like really high on the utility index of the good that they serve in the world and the function and their purpose. However, they're quite unsightly, in my opinion. They're not really beautiful architectural feats or anything like this. They serve a purpose. They do their job well at housing a lot of people. However, they are quite unsightly. I don't really like the look of them. So, every morning when I'd get up and I'd have my morning coffee and I'd look out my window, I would have to just imagine that I was looking at the mountains or looking at the ocean or looking at the forest or something, because in reality, I'd just be looking at this ugly apartment complex. And so I always dreamed of, instead of having to look at this apartment complex, if we could grow some trees and plants in our yard and for them to grow tall enough that they would cover the apartment complex. So when I'd look outside, I could just look and see the trees, and it would kind of be like I'm hiding from the rest of the city, that I'm blocked off from the rest of the city. So I'm happy to report that this is pretty much the case now. These trees have grown so quickly that when I look outside, wow, I don't have to see the apartment complex anymore. I can just look at the trees. The trees haven't completely covered the complex. I can still see it a little bit, but it's getting there. And I think in another year or two, probably that dream will come true and I'll be able to have my urban oasis here in my yard. So I'm feeling great about that. One of the cool trees or plants, I guess it's not a tree, it's a bush to be specific. One of the cool bushes that my wife purchased was a blueberry bush. So I think this is the only plant, I'm just going through my head here. Yeah, I think this is the only plant that we have that is actually edible, is the blueberry bush. So yeah, my wife bought this blueberry bush, and again, it's growing really, really well. And when I first saw it, when she brought it home, I was like, we're not going to have any blueberries from this thing. Like, what is she trying to do? It's cute. It's a cute idea, but it's not actually going to produce fruit, is it? Well, I was totally wrong, because this blueberry bush has actually produced a lot of berries, many, many berries. And we've been snacking on blueberries all summer long here so far. And yeah, it's just one bush. So it's not like we can have bowls and bowls of blueberries, but every day we can eat some fresh blueberries, which are just delicious. One of my favorite fruits, super healthy for you. And although I do eat them fresh from time to time, it's rather expensive to buy them at the supermarket. So instead, usually I eat frozen blueberries. So I'm really happy about this, that I can eat the fresh blueberries right from our bush in our yard this summer. How cool. However, the blueberries have attracted a lot of attention in our neighborhood with the local birds. And Earlier in the episode, at the start, I said that we have been terrorized by a burglar over the last week, and it's totally true. By the way, a burglar is someone who steals something from you. So there could be like a burglar who breaks into a home and steals something from a home, or a burglar who goes into a store and steals something from a store or a bank. That kind of person we could call a burglar. Similar words are thief or criminal. Okay, all of these words are similar, a burglar. And so we have been terrorized by a blueberry bush burglar. A lot of B's there. By the way, this is a very high level word, but a good one to know. It is alliteration. And alliteration is a literary device in English where we have a lot of the same sounds in a connected sequence. And usually we use this in poetry or maybe titles when you're giving a title to maybe a TV show or a movie or a book. Then alliteration is really cool. So I have that repeated B sound, right? Blueberry bush burglar. And can you guess who is stealing the blueberries from our yard? That's right, it's a bird. It's a bird. The birds in the neighborhood have found the blueberry bush. So the burglar is a bird and it's stealing the blueberries. A lot of bees there. Anyways, originally, once we planted this blueberry bush in our yard, I thought that it's not going to take long for the word to get out and for the neighborhood birds to locate the blueberries and start stealing the blueberries. Because in our previous apartment that we lived in, there was also a blueberry bush kind of in the parking area for that apartment building. And there were some older folks that lived in the building that maintained a little garden there. And one of the plants that they had was a blueberry bush. And the birds would just eat the blueberries all the time, constantly. And I remember one of the grandpas that lived in that building, he installed some kind of netting over the bush to try and stop the birds from eating the blueberries, but it didn't really work very well. And so I thought the same thing would happen in our yard, that right away the neighborhood birds would find it and eat the berries. However, that wasn't really true. And it went like 3-4 weeks without any of the birds finding the bush at all. I guess it was just in like a sweet location where they couldn't spot it. I have no idea really how birds forage for food. And forage means to collect, right? To hunt and collect food. And this is what birds do really well, foraging for different types of insects and berries and whatever else they eat. So I don't know if they use their sense of smell or only rely on their eyes. I don't know how birds do it, but for whatever reason, they didn't find our berry bush for quite a long time. So that was great. We were able to enjoy the blueberries and just feast on them, munch on them every morning, just have a couple of berries as a little treat. However, over the last week, the birds have found it, and one bird species in particular. I'm not sure if it's the same bird coming back again and again, or if he told all of his friends and they're all coming in a sequence. But there's this bird here that lives in Korea, and I looked up its native range. It ranges from kind of northern Japan and throughout Japan and also throughout the Korean peninsula, a little bit of eastern China and into like the northern part of the Philippines. So if you live in East Asia, then maybe you know this bird. The English name is the brown-eared bulbul. And when I was researching this bird on Wikipedia, I actually learned that this word, bulbul, spelt B-U-L-B-U-L, is originally a Persian word. So I know we have a lot of Persian native speakers who listen to the podcast. Shout out to all the Farsi speakers out there who are listening to Culips right now. Guys, you can let me know if this actually is a word from your language, and that would be really cool if that was a word of Persian origin or Farsi origin that made it into the English language. Anyways, it was a new word to me. Now, this brown-eared bulbul looks rather plain. It's like this dark gray color, almost a little black, and it's got these two circles that are dark brown on the side of its head, which I suppose are its brown ears, why we call it the brown-eared bulbul. And as far as I know, the males and females both look similar. So, with many bird species, the females will look rather plain and the males will be more decorative and have a lot of fancy colors. However, I believe with this bird species, both the males and the females are rather plain and, yeah, not too amazing to look at, to be honest with you. So this week we've had these brown-eared bulbuls stealing our blueberries, and I'm not sure if it's just one bird or several birds, because they all look the same, so I can't tell. But at first, when they first found the blueberries, they were rather timid, and my wife actually captured it on camera. So I'm going to show the video clip in the YouTube video of this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this brown-eared bulbul fly into our yard and swoop down and steal the blueberry. Now, at first, like I said, they were rather timid, so they did it in several steps. They'd fly into the yard, look around, and see if the coast was clear. This is a great expression. The coast is clear. If the coast is clear, it means that there's nobody watching. So they would come into the yard, check around, make sure the coast is clear, nobody is watching, and they could steal a blueberry without getting in trouble, like getting caught by a predator or getting caught by us. So they would check, make sure everything was okay, and then slowly hop up to the blueberry bush, fly into the bush, eat a berry, and then fly away. That is how they first started stealing the berries. But now they're much more sophisticated. They figured out how to just swoop into the yard and fly down and grab a berry in mid-flight without having to land. And yeah, they've really learned quite quickly, actually, how to steal berries very efficiently. So that's actually kind of cool to see. However, I'm a little bit angry at these birds for stealing my delicious blueberries. Like, I want to eat the blueberries. And yeah, I don't mind sharing a berry or two, but they're coming in like all the time and stealing the berries. So my wife works from home several days a week, and she's posted up right beside the door to our yard, and she keeps it open here in the summer. And so she's been pretty good at scaring away the birds. If they're taking too many berries, we'll let them take a few, but we want to have some for ourselves too. That's part of the joy of having this kind of cool blueberry bush, is that we can enjoy some of the berries. So she's been pretty good at scaring the birds away, and me too. I've been spending more time in the yard recently during the afternoon. If I have some time here at home, I'll just sit in the yard. And if I'm out there, then they're too timid to come in and try and steal the berries. But if we're both inside and not paying attention, then that's when the burglary happens. And we have a new dog in our home as well. We adopted our pet dog, Owa, about 2 months ago now, and I've been trying to teach her to bark when the birds come into the yard. However, this has been totally unsuccessful. I've been joking with the dog. I'm like, come on, oh, well, you're just sleeping all day. You want to be a part of this family, a member of this family, then you have to do something. You have to protect our house from these burglars. So when you see the birds out there, you have to bark or scare the birds away. But she's totally oblivious to that fact, and she just sleeps pretty much all of the time when the birds are active in the morning and in the afternoon stealing their berries. So that has been totally unsuccessful. My training attempts to turn our cute poodle Owa into a security guard, a guard dog, hasn't really been successful at all. But yeah, at the end of the day, I guess it's okay. It's like the price that we have to pay to the local wildlife. And all in all, I'm really happy at how my urban oasis is coming together. This little slice of nature in my yard here in the middle of Seoul. And a slice of nature should include some plants, like all of these beautiful trees that my wife is maintaining in her garden, but also some animals, right? And so I think, although I've been calling them burglars and saying that they're terrorizing our home and our yard, and I've been painting these brown-eyed bulbuls in a very bad light and saying a lot of bad things about them. At the end of the day, I think I'm actually happy that we have some animal friends visiting our yard, because this is what nature should be, right? It should be plants and animals and insects and birds, all of these things. So I'm glad we have these visitors, and I'm really happy about how the progress in our yard is turning out. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's story. If you made it all the way here to the end, congratulations. You completed an English study session. You can be proud of that. And this is what you need to do to build your English fluency. You need to spend a lot of time listening to natural English, just like the kind you heard me use here today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, let me know over on our Discord server. It's free for everyone to join, and you can find the link in the description for this episode. I'd also like you to leave a comment with this week's completion code. You can leave either just the one word for the completion code, or you can leave an example sentence with the completion code, and that will signal to me and all of our other fabulous members of our Culips community that you completed this episode. So for this week, let's go with the code word burglar. And there should be some fun example sentences with this completion code burglar. So leave them in the comments either on our Discord or YouTube or Instagram, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next Culips episode. Until then, goodbye.